Hi, this is Inner Beauty Love. I'm responding to Marley Ford '01's response about welfare. I wanted to go ahead and touch on a couple of different topics regarding it. I felt that, I know I haven't been making videos in a while, and I said it's time to go ahead and make one when it comes to this topic. So I'm going to talk about it from a personal level to like my work level regarding it. So, anyways, I grew up in a home where both my parents were married. They were high school sweethearts. They got married. My dad was the sole provider for the family. My mother was the homemaker. So she took care of all of our needs at home. Um, After my dad, he was boxing. He used to box. And he also used to work for a cannery. And so when the cannery closed and when he retired from boxing, he decided, he'd open up a t-shirt shop, which he was doing pretty well with his t-shirt shop. He had that for several years. I consider we were like a middle class family. We had income. My dad, was able to provide for us, take us on different trips and different things like that nature. But he got involved in gambling. And so he gambled away his business. He almost lost the home. Luckily, my mom found out about it and was able to save it. But my dad, after he lost the business, his morale kind of went down. He decided that he didn't want to work anymore. Now, my mother could have said, you know what, well, I'll just go ahead and, accept it or whatever. But my mom decided to go ahead and say, you know what, either you stay and take care of and provide for your family, or you can leave. So at that time, my dad chose to leave. Now, my brother and I, we were still going to visit him and everything at that point. But mind you, like I said, my mom was a homemaker, so she didn't have any work skills. So what she had to do was go and get on welfare for the time being. She could have adapted that mentality of, I'm just going to live on welfare and that's it. But she knew that she had 4 mouths to feed, as well as her own. So what she decided to do is, start working for a school district and also receive welfare, I'm so glad that my mom chose to do both. She didn't pick up that mentality that, oh, I could just go ahead and live off the system, let them take care of me and my kids and da 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 this, da 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 that. She didn't pick up that mentality. She did what she needed to do at that time. That's all she could, do was, go ahead and get on welfare. But she also compensated that with going and working. And so because of that, my mom's, I said, has good work ethics. And because of that, it made my brothers and I have that same work ethics. Now, we could have gone the same route and, gone ahead and had our kids and, got on welfare and stuff like that. But that wasn't what we wanted to do. Although I had my daughter young, I had her, well, I consider it young. I was still legal age. I was 21 when I had her. But I could have adapted that same mentality, go and get on welfare and let the system take care of me. But that's not the type of person that I was, and that's not the type of person that I wanted to be. So, looking back, I see how much my mom, she had to struggle back in the day. You have to report any and everything to the welfare system and all this monotonous stuff that she had to go through back in the day. And I always told myself, I don't want that for me. But I had the choice to go ahead and, adapt that mentality or go ahead and say, ooh, let me go ahead and get that once a month check and be satisfied with that. And that's not me. I've been working since I was 13 years old, on and off throughout my years. Since I was 13 years old, I had my little work permit because I made good grades. And so because of that, I always liked having money. And I always looked at welfare as you get a check once a month. I don't think so. That's not for me. Not to put other women down. If you're using it for valid reasons, like you mentioned, what it's called is the welfare reform, where the women had to go through what is called the Cal Works program to go ahead and slowly but get the job skills and the job trainings. They teach you how to, prepare your resume. They teach you how to interview. They show you what appropriate attire to wear for an interview. And then from that, they kind of help you transition into getting a job. But some women didn't look at it like that. They looked at it like, ooh, if I go into the Cal Works program, I can go ahead and get that money for 5 years. And then once that ends, then I can go ahead and still receive it for my kids. And if you had more kids, you still were able to get the food stamps. So, like you said, it is a vicious cycle. I believe that some women do use it for the benefit of going to school or transitioning into work. I know somebody that's really close to me that chose to go ahead and, get the welfare for her 3 kids, work part-time, and go to school full-time. And she just finished and got her college degree. Now, her worker told her that, oh, you don't need to go to work or you don't need to go to school. You could just go ahead and collect the full grant. Now, my thing is, I told her she should have reported that person because, for one, think of how many other people that he's saying that to. There's some people that, they're not as strong-willed as her. And it really bothered me to hear that he would say something like that. But, yeah, so moving on. I know I'm rambling on in little bits and pieces, but I think you're right. It's a choice. You either choose to go ahead and live on the welfare system, or you choose to want better for yourself and for your family. So it's up to you as a person to go ahead and make that decision on what's going to be best for yourself in the long run. Another example, my brother's wife, currently she's Caucasian. Similar situation to your mother, where she got pregnant with her daughter at 15. She ended up having all 3 of her kids by the time she was 21. Now, I'm saying this because, she also was I feel, a career welfare worker. She kind of fell in between that welfare reform, so she was forced to go to work. If she had it her way, she would have never gone to work. That wasn't what she wanted to go ahead and do. But when she was forced into it, or, when they were threatening to cut her grant, she went ahead and did. And she was lucky. She was one of the few people that was blessed to go ahead and get an excellent job. Even with no experience, they hired her, they liked her. She worked for the company, I want to say maybe 3 years, and got injured on the job or something like that. And from that point on, she didn't want to go back to work. And my brother was frustrated with that, but I told him, I said, you have to understand, you knew that before, when you guys were in a relationship together, that she was on welfare and that she had no intention on going and working. She wanted to go ahead and just stay at home. And I said, and now you're upset with her because she's going back to her choice of to stay at home. They split up at one point in time. And what did she go and do? She went and got back on welfare because pretty much that's all she knew. She didn't know anything differently. She wasn't raised in a home like we were, where her mother worked and her mother, taught her, good work ethics. And I think some women get caught up in that. Sometimes it's a vicious cycle, where you do see your parents, with that same mentality. It's see it so much. I see it so much. I'm not going to say where I work, for the protection of myself and then also for, the clients that I work with. But I see it every day. I see it where men are the same way. They're on their women's welfare grant and they're okay with that. For me, I get frustrated seeing it because, you always want what's better for somebody. You always feel like, I just want you to see what I see, and for people not to get it or understand it, it's really, it gets challenging at times. And sometimes I have to, step back and say, you know what? Not everybody was raised the way that I was raised, or not everybody has that same mentality that you have, Marley 401. Not everybody, some people get caught in that rut where they feel like they can't do any better or they don't know any better. So it's just like a combination of everything. And sometimes it's just such a vicious cycle, and it's frustrating to see, and I'm sure I can feel your pain where you're frustrated to see, your mom still making excuses for not working. Sometimes it's just that sense of entitlement. You feel like I deserve this, although you didn't pay into, you don't deserve it. You didn't pay anything into the system. But yeah, sometimes the system can be more of a hindrance than it is helping someone. I feel like they need to create a better system for this welfare reform. I don't know if you recall, maybe about 7 months ago, and I know it was on the news, it was nationwide, where they had mentioned how people were using these EBT cards where they put their cash aid and their food stamps on the card. People were going to the casinos, people were going to strip clubs, going to all these different places like on cruises and different things like that, and using their welfare card. And it makes you think, well, that cash aid is supposed to be of benefit to your family. And benefit to your family meaning you're supposed to pay your rent, pay your SMUD or PG&E, take care of maybe your phone bill, the basic necessities for your household. But then you're seeing all these funds being allocated to all these other places, and they weren't doing anything about it. And so to see stuff like that is really, really frustrating. But, I guess all I can say is it is what it is. And, hopefully, we can create a better system to help people. And I think it starts with more training, help people see things differently, which leads me to what I want to do. I want to go ahead and create some type of program out there that will assist these families, that will teach them how to, budget their money, use coupons, teach them that, you are worth it. There's more out there than meets the eye, and some of the people just have never had positiveness or positive things spoken into them, to help better themselves in the future. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you a quick oversight and overview of what I saw as far as the welfare system and how it does have an effect on households nationwide, and how they do need to create something better to help families. So that's just my quick input on it. I know it's not quick. It's like 14 minutes and 28 seconds into it. But anyways, I just felt like I wanted to go ahead and needed to respond to that. So you have a great week, and I will talk with you all soon. God bless.